Unlike Fair Isle, where you work the color work while you're knitting, the duplicate stitch is added after your actual knitting has been done. So this makes it a bit easier. What you're doing is basically drawing or embroidering on top of the knitted stitches. So I've already threaded some contrasting yarn through a tapestry needle, and I recommend keeping the length of the yarn to under 24 inches. If you run out of yarn, it's easy enough to rethread the needle and continue where you left off. Also, there's no need for a knot as the ends can be woven in later. The next step is to find the first stitch to cover with the contrasting yarn. So this is the bottom-most stitch of the heart in the grid. I've already counted down the rows and decided where I wanted to place the stitch to keep the video short. It might be a good idea to even use a stitch marker or to color over the stitch before you start, especially if you're new to this. What we're going to do is trace over the V of the stitch with the contrasting color by inserting the needle through the bottom of the V from behind the fabric. Now we just pull the yarn through and leave a tail of about 4 inches so that you can weave it in later. And then to cover the first leg of the V, what we want to do is insert the needle horizontally through the V of the stitch above this one. And now with the first leg covered, all we have to do is cover the second leg. So we insert the needle back into the bottom of the stitch and pull the yarn through to the back of the work. And you can see that's how your first V has been covered. So that's the first stitch in our diagram to the left. Now we'll work the second stitch, which is directly over the first one in the same way. So insert the needle from back to front through the bottom of the stitch to cover. Then horizontally through the V of the stitch above, and finally back through the bottom of the stitch. One pointer that I have to mention is to make sure that you're not pulling the yarn too tight. We want the duplicate stitches to gently cover the stitch underneath, not choke it. So we're continuing on with row 3 here, and as you can see there are 3 stitches in this row that we need to cover. And I'm starting with one stitch directly above the stitch from the row below, but to the right. So not directly above, but one stitch to the right of that stitch. And then we'll work our way from right to left to cover the 3 stitches from this row. And with that said, we can continue to follow the pattern. So remember, it's like coloring with yarn. Take your time and enjoy the process. I love this type of color work so much because I can get into the flow state while watching a vibrant design emerging right before my eyes. Plus, if you make a mistake, it's so easy to fix. You just have to pull the yarn back through to right before you made the mistake, instead of like frogging your work if you were using Fair Isle or another colorwork method. So it's very forgiving in that sense as well. One drawback to the duplicate stitch is that, like most color work, the backside of your knitting isn't very pretty to look at. So I would not recommend using it if you're knitting a blanket or a scarf or anything else where you see both sides. The backside of the heart on this hat will actually not even show at all because of the double brim. So the bottom piece of the fabric will be folded inwards and then seamed up using the provisional cast on to completely hide the inside. And it'll also add an extra layer of warmth around the ears. I have made a quick short on the provisional cast on, which you can also find on this YouTube channel, so be sure to check it out. And let me know in the comments below if you'd like to see a full tutorial. Another tip for this type of color work is to use actual wool. I find that acrylic yarn doesn't sit quite right. The wool somehow makes the fibers stick together, if that makes sense. And then once the last stitch has been covered, you can weave in the ends on the back side of the work just as you would with regular knitting. And that's it. I really hope you found this tutorial helpful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. It's a small gesture to help other knitters find this channel. And of course, subscribe for more helpful knitting and crochet content just like this.